Hello and welcome to another edition of the Film Book. My name is Doug Hess. I am the host of The Complete Works. On The Complete Works, that's where we're working through a podcast every week, talking about a specific movie from an actor, actress, director, or composer's film history. And currently, you can check us out on The Complete Works, where we're working through the history of Nicolas Cage movies. But today, that is not what we're here to talk about. Today, we're here to talk about Muhammad Ali, When We Were Kings. It's a DVD documentary, so it's really not a movie, but more of a documentary that is going through the 1974 Rumble in the Jumble, as it was referred to back in 74, where Muhammad Ali and George Foreman went after it to one another down in Africa. But before we get into the actual documentary itself, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the special features that are on this DVD. One is The Soul Power. It's a 2008 documentary about the Zari 74 Music Festival that was directed by Jeffrey Kazma Hinty. It's roughly an hour and 32 minutes in length. I think it's something that you would really enjoy and remember, and we'll get into this a little bit here in a minute or two, that the 74 Music Festival was kind of centered around this fight, the fight of the century between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. So it's something that I would encourage you to check out. There's also a new interview with the producer, David Sonnenberg. It's roughly a little over 16 minutes in length, as well as an interview from 1997 with the director of the film, Leon Gass. It's just a little over 4 minutes. There's also a minute and a half trailer that you'll find on this DVD. But you also find a plus or a little extra. It's an essay by the critic Keflon Sane. I hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly, but I think that's another thing that you would enjoy on this as well. The documentary itself is roughly a little over an hour and 37 minutes, something that I definitely believe that you'll enjoy. It's rated PG because of some of the images. There's some brief nudity and some language that's on here. Something that I think you're going to really enjoy with this documentary is the fact that Muhammad Ali is in here. So we have video clips of Muhammad Ali. We have George Foreman, Norman Mailer, George Pendleton. We also have some musicians in there. The great James Brown and B.B. King is also featured in this documentary that I think you're going to really enjoy. You should enjoy it because it's an Academy Award-winning documentary that it won the Academy Award for the best documentary. So it's something that is very well put together, something that's very powerful, but also something I think you're going to enjoy as well. Now, because this is dealing with sports and Muhammad Ali, I'm going to, at the end, put a little bit of a special twist on this, something that you might want to think about when talking to your kids, or you might want to review this prior to allowing your kids to see it. First of all, when I say that, it's not because of the violence or the nudity or the language. There's some of that in there, and by all means, I'm not here to promote any of that. But the fact is, it was something that was very powerful. You got to remember, back in the 70s, that's when you had Vietnam going on. You had racial tensions here in this country. This documentary really does an excellent job of really confronting all of this and bringing it together, not only into a beautiful documentary telling the story of the Rumble and the Jungle, as it was referred to, George Foreman, but it just really does a beautiful job, I think, of telling about the history, what was going on in this time. And what's really interesting is I found a quote that Leon Gast, who is the director, said that if they had released this particular documentary 20 years ago, it wouldn't have the power that it has today. So sometimes timing is everything into this. So we'll get into a little bit about what parents need to know, maybe some talking points with your kids. But again, I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad thing. I think it's a beautiful, well done documentary. You're going to enjoy it. It's very powerful. But I'll address that here in just a couple of seconds. So, what is this story? What is this about? Like I said, it's roughly about an hour and a half in length. It's 1974. So let's transport back to 1974 when Muhammad Ali wants to regain his world heavyweight boxing championship title in When We Were Kings. And that's the name of the DVD. So we got to remember, Muhammad Ali, he's 32 years old. He's still ambitious. He's still talented. And he wants to once again be bound to glory after having been stripped of his earlier title when in 1966 he refused to be inducted into the U.S. Army, okay, or Armed Forces. So the defending champion, which is George Foreman, he's 10 years younger, so you got to remember. So here you got Muhammad Ali, who is 10 years older than George Foreman. And Foreman is just a fighter. Not to say that Muhammad Ali wasn't. He is, but you've got these two massive fighters out there. He's George Foreman. He's strong. He's undefeated. He's currently 40-0. And that is when the promoter, Don King, who is looking to have a little bit of stardom himself. If anybody's familiar with Don King, he's a showman. He knows how to promote. So he wants to have a little stardom himself, and he sets this unlikely title up in, of all places, a very unlikely setting in Zaire, formerly the Congo, down in Africa, which he is going to guarantee each fighter $5 million. Okay. And he promises to promote this as the fight of the century. So you got Muhammad Ali going to get $5 million, and you got George Foreman, who's also going to get $5 million. And Don King promises that he's going to go out and he's just going to promote the heck out of this. And it's going to be the fight of the century. It was, as we'll find out decades later, and I say find out decades later, is because at the time, it's like anything else. At any particular moment in time, it might seem to be important, but as things age and we look back and we reflect on things, we also find that things are a little bit more richer into that. So we find out that it has retained its once-in-a-lifetime status as the Rumble in the Jungle. So even though it's 2019, we still look at 1974 and the Rumble in the Jungle as a very powerful event in terms of that. So the director, Lee Gass, and his team, they follow in the prep and the training that goes into this. They also are going to really focus on the media frenzy that's taking place during this time as they're preparing for this fight. And the bout itself, while skillfully trying to bring in historical footage, commentary, and extensive on-camera interviews with boxing power fans such as Norman Mailer, George Pendleton, and Spike Lee, trying to bring this perspective in there. So the director does I just think a fabulous job of not only having interviews that's going on, telling us about different things, and then getting a historical perspective of things, but also following these fighters as they get ready to have this fight, the fight of the century. And I should also add that besides all the footage and the commentary that's going on, and the on-camera interviews, there's also footage from the concert itself that was held in Zaire in the tandem with the event, which is featuring James Brown, and B.B. King is in this. And so I just think the director does a wonderful job of bringing everything together into about an hour and a half, and really does a wonderful job of bringing everything together. Everything is clear. So the video, you think about 1974, maybe things wasn't preserved. Well, they've done a beautiful job of making it very clear and interesting, very entertaining, something that you just want to watch and continue watching in the process. So I guess the question then becomes, is it good? It's a beautiful documentary that integrates not only sports, but the radical politics, or not radical, excuse me, the racial politics that's going on, the African American music performance that's taking place there, and testimonies, and also just the personality of Muhammad Ali himself that's going on in there. It's just, I can't say it enough. It's just a beautiful, well done um, documentary. I want to say film, but it's not really a film. It's a documentary, but it's just well done. And like I said, it won the Academy Award back in 1996. So you have Muhammad Ali, who is driven by his profound commitment to the Black pride and pursuing the values of his Muslim faith. Ali sees his comeback fight against the reigning world champion boxer George Foreman as a defining moment for all people of color, and he fills the screen not only with his talent, his quick mind. If you know anything about Muhammad Ali, he was very quick-witted, and quick on his feet, not only in the boxing ring, but also when he was doing his interviews. And you could just feel his larger-than-life presence in the film. Even though it's 1974, it's 2019, you can still just feel the presence and the power of Muhammad Ali in there. When we look at We Were Kings, it basically took more than 20 years for it to reach the screen because of some legal disputes. But when it was finally released back in 1996, it became, like I said, an acclaimed winning documentary, winning major awards, as we said, the Academy Award for Best Documentary Features. Just a powerful movie, or excuse me, documentary in terms of that. And like I said earlier in my research, what really struck me, and I think it's worth saying again, is that the director Leon Gass has stated that had the film been released in a timely manner back in the 1970s, the emphasis almost certainly would have been different, and the 20 plus years interval allowed for the perspective of Ali's growing influence and popularity totally would have been different. And so I really think that says a lot about this film, and sometimes having the hindsight of knowing that, yes, sometimes we would have really liked to have got this out in a timely manner, but sometimes it's kind of like a wine. It kind of just gets a little bit better with age in terms of that. Like I mentioned earlier, a couple things that you might want to take into consideration if you're having kids watch this, because it's a sports event or a sports themed documentary. And I think you think that because it says Muhammad Ali, but it's please do your best to get past that. It's much more than that. It's talking about the politics of the day. It's got wonderful performances that are taking place there. And like I said, it's also got the power of Muhammad Ali in this as well, in terms of that. A couple things that I would just kind of throw out there. Parents need to know that when they're watching When We Were Kings with their children or by themselves prior to having their children join them, that this is a documentary about the World Boxing Championship fight that took place between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman that was held in the African country, like I said, Zaire in October 1974. Parents, this is going to be a very fast-paced, high-energy film. There's going to be some high-energy scenes that's going to take place in there. The film also takes the views through the initial planning of the event, the boxers training, or I should say the boxers training regiments. A long delay is happens because George Foreman has an injury over his eye, and the championship bout itself is then delayed, which has long been famously known as the Rumble in the Jungle, as I said. But in addition to this, the filmmakers have entwined the interviews, newsreel footage, and examples from the musical performance held in that country, along with the boxing speculation itself, or not speculations, but spectacle itself, I should say. As a result, this film is much more than its sports itself. It touches upon, like I said, the politics of the time and the political implications of the event, but also the growing influence of Muhammad Ali in terms of that. There's some violence, there's hard hitting boxing sequence, historical footage that's involved in there. And like I said, you're going to have a little bit of profanity that's going to be in there, but nothing that I think is going to be um, too bad in terms of that. And Muhammad Ali became an iconic figure late in the 20th century in America, and it's basically his boxing ability, his personality, and the commitment to the betterment of his peers really makes him stand out as a powerful and influential figure in the 20th century in terms of that. Um, when you watch this, like I said, it's easy to how do I want to say this? I think sometimes I went in there thinking that it was going to be a movie, even though I knew it was not a movie; it was a documentary. And so sometimes people get a little squirmish about documentaries. Don't do that with this documentary. I think you're going to find it very enjoyable, very entertaining, and very powerful from an educational standpoint. And parents, I would encourage you to encourage your students, your kids, to watch this documentary because it's telling about a specific time in our country's history. And I just think that you're going to find it to be very powerful and also entertaining at times as well. So, like I said, it's an Academy Award winning film for Best Documentary. It definitely proved that to me, and something that I would highly encourage you to go out and watch. Get the DVD for your collection and enjoy it, and sit back and watch a little bit of history unfold in your very eyes and enjoy.